And it's my pleasure now to introduce Boris Johnson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. It's a great, great pleasure to be here this morning in Doha. And actually, of course, anybody who lives in London, as I do, feels they know Qatar pretty well already, because there are so many wonderful investments by Qatar in our city. And it's extraordinary to look at the real thing and to see the drive and the vision with which the infrastructure is being built here, the speed with which you're getting things done. Absolutely incredible. And I realise that the extraordinary skyline that we see now wasn't there 15 years ago. Is that right? It's absolutely stunning. And you've run out of space at one airport and you're going to build another. Is that right? 2 new runways. And I wish we had the same sort of gumption and dynamism sometimes in our own country, and we were able to solve our own aviation capacity problems with the speed that you are doing. And I think what it shows, and I think it's why it's very, very important to have an Institute for Infrastructure Studies, it shows the vital importance of building consensus about the big projects that a city needs, and to mobilise the public and get them behind it. And we just had a reasonably successful Olympic Games. I don't know whether you saw the Olympics on the telly. It went pretty well, all things considered. A lot better than some of the pessimists thought it would go. And that was basically because everybody in London knew what the infrastructure requirements were, and they knew that the trains had to run faster, and they knew we had to build that Olympic village, and they understood that the javelin had to lunge every 6 minutes from King's Cross and back to the Olympic Park, and if it didn't work, there would be a real problem. So the entire city was united behind that project and getting the infrastructure in. So it is absolutely vital, when you face the challenges that all big cities face, to build that kind of agreement and to focus. And that's why I think this idea for an institute is extremely, extremely valuable. And I think it's all too easy to believe that we have enough infrastructure and that there's a risk of investing in white elephants, people say. We'll be building kind of Humber bridges. Not that there's anything wrong with the Humber Bridge, but we'll be building bridges to nowhere. Or if anybody's been to Liège, you'll know what I mean by excessive investment in infrastructure in the 1960s and 70s. You can make mistakes with infrastructure. It is certainly true that London is going through a neo-Victorian surge of infrastructure investment. And we are not only increasing the capacity on the underground, the oldest underground network in the world, 150 years old. We're increasing that capacity by 30%. We're putting on air conditioning on the tube, or at least on 40% of it. Pretty good. We've got these very deep tube lines, which makes it difficult to put air conditioning on all of them, I'm afraid to say, but it's not quite as hot in London as it is in Doha, at least not on every line. And we are putting in Crossrail. Crossrail, the most wonderful scheme that will hook up the east and the west of the city, a gigantic metro railway running right the way through from Maidenhead in the west to Shenfield in the east, making Heathrow Airport much, much more accessible to the city and indeed to Canary Wharf. It's a long overdue scheme. We're also finally dealing with the we've got to be infrastructure is a gritty business. Sometimes we're dealing with the sewerage problem in London. Not that there is much of a problem, but we still relying on the Bazalgette interceptors, if you know what I mean, which these are put in by a Victorian engineer called Joseph Bazalgette in the 19th century, and they, I'm afraid, sometimes overflow with unpleasant consequences in the Thames. We're putting in a gigantic super sewer underneath the Thames Tideway Tunnel, running all the way through London, down the Talweg of the river, all the way through London to the sea, cleaning up the River Thames for the first time in 100 years. It's going to be absolutely fantastic when it is finished. And of course, that project, like all the infrastructure projects I've mentioned, will generate tens of thousands of jobs, get people into work. So there's a short-term boost to the economy from infrastructure projects as well. But I want to stress that none of these things are going to be enough. London is unlike virtually any other city in Western Europe in that we have a young, dynamic and growing population. Since I have been mayor, no thanks to me, the population of London has risen by about 600,000 people, according to the census. And we're going to go up to we're going to have a further 1 million people by 2021. There's no other city. We're going to overtake New York. We're going to be at 9 million before New York. We're going to be at 10 million by 2030. We are the fastest growing city in Europe. We have huge pressures on our infrastructure, and we've got to invest. And there's massive opportunities. Everybody can see when you look at the map of London, there are massive opportunities in the east. We need new river crossings. We need Crossrail 2. Does anybody know what Crossrail 2 is? You see, we will do. And I very much hope you'll participate in the creation of it. It's going to deal with what happens when HS2, the new high-speed link, comes into Euston, and we have millions of passengers that you need to cope with in Euston. We'll need to deal with overcapacity on the Victoria line. And then, of course, sorry, not overcapacity, overuse. We've got undercapacity. Overuse on the Victoria line. And then, of course, as we were discussing earlier on, we need a new airport. And since I've got a captive audience on a Saturday morning, I can't tell you how flattered I am, by the way, that so many people have turned up on a Saturday morning to this talk. And I think it's an illustration of the vital importance of this subject. We must find a solution for our aviation problem in London. And I just want to, if I can, to emphasise that I really don't believe that expanding Heathrow, much as we may all love Heathrow as an airport, convenient though we may find it, expanding Heathrow is not an option for our city. And give you the key statistic, 766,210 people in the Western London suburbs already suffer from excess noise pollution as a result of planes coming into Heathrow. That is 1/3 of all the victims of noise pollution from planes in the whole of Europe, in all the 76 airports measured for noise pollution by the EU Commission. Now, if you put in a third runway at Heathrow, you will not only exacerbate the suffering of those who already, in West London, who already have the problem, but you will introduce hundreds of thousands more Londoners, if not millions more Londoners, into the flight path. And I just give you my political assessment. It's not a runner. No government is going to be able to get this through. They won't have the political will, the ability, the drive to do it. There must be a better solution. And we've got some noted Gensler is here. We've got loads of people here who have brilliant ideas for a long-term solution to the east of London, which is, as I say, where the opportunity is. And there are all sorts of problems that people will throw up, and all sorts of objections that people will make. They'll worry about the birds. You can move the birds. They'll be all right. There's a ship, a sunken ship that is full of explosives. That's all right. You blow it up. Or do something else with it. If it's a problem anyway. But one problem that I think we can solve is the cost. And the point I want to leave you with is that I think I'm right in saying the world has a colossal need for infrastructure. Did you say $70 trillion? There are $70 trillion worth of infrastructure projects around the world at the moment. But few, in my view, have a business case as sound as expanded aviation capacity in the southeast of England, the motor of the UK economy, one of the most productive regions in the whole of Europe. And I hope very much that people will want to invest in that area and in that region. And I believe very much that these projects can be financed, and that funds looking at future sources of income will look at infrastructure and think it represents a solid return. Consider for a second what we're doing at Battersea, where you'll be familiar with that gigantic mouldering power station that's been an eyesore for most of our lives. That's now going to be regenerated. It's going to be rebuilt, it's going to be turned into hotels, shops, restaurants, thousands and thousands of homes. That is made possible by transport infrastructure, by the extension of the Northern Line, 2 new stations at Battersea and Nine Elms, right? But that extension of the Northern Line is made possible by tax increment financing, by the future yield from the business rates that will accrue as a result of the investment that is going to go in. And that is why I believe when you look at the projects for London, new river crossings, Crossrail 2, a new airport, the extension of the tube, you see the real potential for solid and long-term returns. So thank you very, very much for having me along today. I think this is a brilliant idea to have an Institute for Infrastructure Studies. I heartily congratulate Anthony, Ian, everybody involved in setting it up, Shashank, everybody involved in setting it up. I think this is and I think it's wonderful that this is an institution that brings together Doha and London, because the story of the world economy in the next 50 years is going to be about competition between great global cities, isn't it? But it's also about what we can learn from each other. And the more we can learn from each other, in my view, the better our cities will do. Thank you very, very much for having me along this morning, and congratulations to you all on establishing this vital piece of intellectual underpinning infrastructure for the discussion of infrastructure. Do you want me to take questions now? You're nodding. Okay. Why don't I now declare this institute, this historic institute? I'm the mayor of London. You don't mind if I do that? You'll be like, all right, okay, good. It gives me great pleasure, therefore, in conclusion, here at the glorious Four Seasons Hotel in Doha, to declare the Institute for Infrastructure Studies officially launched. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.